So now we're looking at word problems dealing with the same general idea. The key distinctions here are, instead of having to calculate our p-hat, it's going to be given to us. And instead of stopping at the z-score, we're going to need to use that z-score to look up in the table and find a specific probability. So when I'm reading this prompt, a local newspaper claims that 10% of Philadelphia residents still read the newspaper every day. What they're claiming is the population proportion. So I'm going to write that down as p equals 0.10. A random sample of 120 Philadelphians is chosen. So that random sample is my n equals 120. What's the probability that less than 8% read the paper every day? So what we're comparing it to and finding the probability for is going to be our sample proportion. Again, we don't have to solve for it the way we did in the first problems. It's given to us in these word problems. So p-hat equals 0.08. Do be careful with single digit percentages. Make sure you're not saying this is 0.8. 0.8 would be 80%. It needs to be 0.08. If I now set this up as a z-score, z equals our sample proportion, 0.08, minus our population proportion, 0.10, divided by the root of the population proportion, 0.10, times 1 minus 0.10 the population proportion, all over the sample size, 120. So I take out my calculator to find this z-score. Again, making sure that parentheses are correct. On top, parentheses 0.08 minus 0.10, divided by, on bottom, the root of, parentheses 0.10, times parentheses 1 minus 0.10, all divided by 120. Again, making sure that all of that is happening under the root. When I put this in, I get a z-score of negative 0.73. I now need to go to my table of values, look up that z-score on the negative side. Negative 0.73 points me to a p-value of 0.2327. P equals 0.2327. I look back at what type of question it was. Since it says less than is the exact table value, so the probability is 0.2327. Looking at problem 6, a local high school reports that 88% of students are present each day. That's telling me what the population proportion is. So I record that as p equals 0.88. If we randomly select 80 students, that's going to be my n. What's the probability that no more than 90% are present today? That's going to be my p-hat. So I set up the z-score. Z equals 0.88 minus 0.90 over the root of 0.90, 1 minus 0.90 divided by 80. Again, I'm going to use my calculator first. I'm going to set up parentheses 0.88 minus 0.90 divided by parentheses, and then make sure that under the root I have an extra parentheses, 0.90 times 1 minus 0.90. Oh, I apologize. I actually made a mistake here. In the bottom, I should be using the population proportion, which is 0.88. In the top, I should have these two switched. It should be my p-hat, 0.90, minus my p, 0.88. Apologies. Let me just correct that in my calculator real quick. Again, that definitely is something that's tricky. You want to make sure it's sample value minus population value on top, and you're only using the population value on bottom. So now, still within my root, I want to make sure that I'm dividing by that 80. When I put all this in correctly, I should get a z-score of 0.55. Again, I then have to go to my table. When I go to my table and I trace down on the positive side, 0.55, I get a p-value of 0.7088. I don't love the wording of this question because it says, what's the probability that no more than? I'd rather them just use more than, less than, but I'm trying to mimic the way it's going to be asked on Cengage. No more than is the same thing as less than. So in this case, I just use the table value.